Metal is a genre like no other. And now I don't mean that to sound pretentious or stuck up, but it's true. No other music genre other than maybe punk has such a large and dedicated subculture dedicated to it. Along with the community, however, comes this sort of tribe mentality. It can be very hard to talk about metal with people who are more into metal than you are, especially if you're someone who's new. Not having heard one of the classic albums is a huge mark of almost dishonor among the community, and you'll likely be ridiculed for it. While I'd love to eliminate this kind of elitist mentality from the metal fanbase, it's impossible, and so instead I'd like to arm you, the newcomer to metal, with all the albums you need to know in order to not sound like a complete and total poser. Note this is a beginner's guide. I'll be avoiding any truly extreme or obscure albums for this list. This list exists as a starting point, to show you where to start. I'll be doing an introduction to extreme metal later, but this is a beginner's beginner list. I'm going to start this list off with one of the most maligned metal albums of all time, the Black Album by Metallica, or as it's more technically called, Metallica. The Black Album is often called a sellout album, which it is. It's often called the end of Metallica's good period. An exaggeration, but still largely true. It's called a pop metal album, which it is, and that's exactly why it earns a spot on this list. Despite being mocked by almost every metalhead out there, the Black Album is the perfect beginning album for metal. The Black Album covers many different styles and subgenres of metal, all with an ear for melody and a glossy production job that make it easy to listen to. This is the album that personally proved to me that metal was more than just noise. And I've only listened to the Black Album maybe once or twice since my first year of being into metal, but it still stands that the Black Album is a quality record that's a huge indicator if metal's a genre for you. If you don't like the Black Album, it's probably safe to say that you won't enjoy anything else on this list. The second album I have on this list is Cowboys from Hell. Pantera is probably one of the most overrated bands in all of metal. Don't get me wrong, they're great, but their reputation is almost inconceivable. Pantera is the band that almost every metal head can agree on. Everyone loves them, and overrated or not, that doesn't change the fact that they're pretty amazing. Cowboys from Hell is kind of the album that saved metal. Now, despite popular opinion, metal wasn't dying in the 90s. In fact, it sort of had a golden age during the 90s. Bands like Napalm Death, Morbid Angel, and Carcass all released their greatest works during this time. However, those are all extreme metal bands, underground bands, comparatively at least. As far as the public was concerned, metal was dead. Pantera changed that. Pantera was one of the few popular, innovative, and high-quality bands of almost the entire decade. They helped pave the way for almost all modern metal. It is pretty unlikely that metal would have had any kind of popular resurgence for years if it hadn't been for Pantera. While Pantera really wouldn't directly inspire any popular bands up until about the early 2000s, Pantera is the band that pretty much alone kept the torch alive, keeping the public's mind on metal. And for that, they deserve the place in almost any metalhead's discography. Cowboys from Hell is the album that perfectly combines legitimately heavy riffs and vocals with wonderfully awesome melodies. Pantera is probably the heaviest band that you'd ever hear on the radio, I can almost guarantee that. While this album does have its moments that might be a tad bit too heavy to really recommend to true beginners, the overall mood and song style of this album is a great introduction to metal. Note, this is pretty much the one Pantera album that I recommend starting with. Anything before this is too pop to really consider true metal, honestly, and everything after this is pretty heavy to really start with. Don't think that picking up any Pantera album will be the same or anything. For your starting place, I really wouldn't recommend anything other than Cowboys. Metallica, Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets is an enigma of sorts. Nobody really seems to like it that much. And don't get me wrong, it's still a beloved and respected album, but no one really talks about it. Metallica is kind of looked down upon by many metalheads for almost being a quote-unquote pop band, and not true thrash. With all that said, having not heard Master of Puppets will still garner you more scorn than wearing a Justin Bieber t-shirt into a Slayer concert. While you're not likely to have someone ask you about Master of Puppets, if someone does, you better have listened to it. Master of Puppets is also a good introduction to progressive metal and technical thrash metal. While I really wouldn't say it falls into either of those categories really, those styles are sprinkled in throughout, and liking this album is a good indicator if those genres are genres you should further pursue. Next up, Black Sabbath's Paranoid. Kind of like Master of Puppets, is an album whose reputation really exceeds its popularity. Like Puppets, it's far from being a bad album, and it deserves its classic status. But it's almost just considered such a beginner album that no one really talks about it. Just like Master of Puppets, though, it's a huge black mark on your quote-unquote metal cred to have not heard it. Paranoid is arguably the most important metal album ever as well. It didn't start the genre, but it may as well have, because Paranoid is pretty much the template that every metal album that follows it is based on. Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. Admittedly, this was a kind of a hard one, honestly. Judas Priest is a legendary band with lots of great albums, many of which would be good for someone who's new to metal. This, British Steel, or Defenders of the Faith all would work just about equally well as a jumping off point. However, I chose Screaming for Vengeance because it has multiple classic songs on it, songs that'll be familiar to just about anyone who has a classic rock station in their town. It's also a pretty deceptively light album. All the guitars are down-tuned and the songs are pretty fast, but they all have an almost bouncy feel to them. Judas Priest makes probably the best driving music this side of Deep Purple, and that's exactly how I'd recommend listening to them. And speaking of Deep Purple, we got Maiden Japan next. Deep Purple is a band that's often considered to be a classic rock band, usually by people who really haven't heard that much from them. Because let me tell you, Deep Purple are metal. Maiden Japan will mostly appeal to the more music nerd type of people. There are 14-minute solos here, filled with this almost eerie-sounding improv in it. The performances are insanely impressive. Every member of the band is an absolute master of their instrument. This is definitely the album for anyone who thinks that metal doesn't take skill to play. Lastly, I have Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. I'm just gonna be honest here, I don't really like this album. Anyone who's followed Metal Motherland for really any period of time has probably picked up on my overall mixed feelings on this album. It's a mixture of me legitimately not liking a handful of the songs here, and the fact that it overshadows what are, in my opinion, superior Iron Maiden albums. While that is my personal opinion, it's an opinion not shared by that many other people. Number of the Beast is one of the most popular, worshipped almost, and respected albums in all of metal. Unlike Master of Puppets or Paranoid, there's no question as to if people really like this album. While I personally feel that there are a handful of weak moments here, there are also some pretty much borderline perfect songs here, like the title track, or what is almost unanimously agreed upon as being the best metal song period, Hallowed Be Thy Name. Number of the Beast is a classic album with amazing songs, even if I feel the overall package isn't quite what people claim it to be. Not having heard this album will likely get you more hatred than not having heard the rest of this list combined. Now, this is by absolutely no means a definitive list. In fact, there are more albums down in the description box of this video. The 7 albums in the video are the 7 that I think are the best to start with. The ones in the description box are also great albums and worth your time, just as much as the ones in the video. I hope this video was helpful, and if you've got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them down in the comments below.